The lights hadn't even fully dimmed yet. And somehow, the entire stadium already knew they were witnessing something unforgettable. Not just a concert, not just another tour stop, but one of those rare moments where a person becomes larger than the stage itself. And at the center of it all was Jin, standing beneath the massive lights of El Paso with a scarf tied around his head, a pink microphone in his hand, and visuals so unreal that fans genuinely couldn't decide whether he looked more like a prince, a movie star, or a character pulled straight out of mythology. What's fascinating is that none of the photos Jin shared from the El Paso tour felt overly polished or distant. They felt personal, intimate, like tiny hidden memories from behind the curtain of one of the biggest tours in the world. And somehow, those candid moments ended up shaking the internet harder than professionally staged photo shoots ever could. Because Jin has this ability that almost no one else has. He doesn't just look handsome, he creates emotions. The moment the photos appeared on Instagram, fans around the world immediately started spiraling over one specific thought. How can someone look this beautiful doing absolutely anything? Seriously. One photo showed Jin casually wearing a scarf wrapped around his head backstage, something that would probably look silly on most people. But on Jin, fans said he looked breathtakingly soft and elegant, almost like a young royal trying to hide from cameras in an old romance film. His expression looked calm, his eyes looked warm, and there was this natural innocence in his face that made the entire image feel strangely comforting. But then, only a few photos later, everything changed. Suddenly, Jin transformed from soft and adorable into something overwhelmingly powerful. A black leather jacket, sharp exposed forehead, dark stage lighting, that intense gaze. Fans online instantly started comparing him to Hades because the atmosphere around him felt dangerously attractive, cold, elegant, mysterious, and almost untouchable. And honestly, the transformation was shocking. That's the thing people always say about Jin. He contains contradictions that shouldn't logically exist together. He can look cute enough to make people smile one second, and then completely wreck everyone emotionally the next. He can stand there eating honey backstage like the most lovable person alive, then walk onto stage looking like he rules an empire. And speaking of that honey photo, ARMYs absolutely lost control over it. Out of all the glamorous concert moments, one of the biggest reactions came from a simple backstage picture of Jin quietly eating honey while waiting. No dramatic pose, no intense styling, no performance lighting, just Jin being Jin. But somehow, that simplicity made fans even more emotional. People couldn't stop talking about the contrast between his tiny, delicate face and his broad shoulders. Others pointed out how unbelievably tall he looked, even while sitting casually. Some fans joked that even when he's doing something ordinary, he still looks like he belongs on the cover of a luxury magazine. But deeper than that, I think fans were touched because the photo felt human. Behind the global fame, behind the sold-out stadiums, behind the worldwide handsome title, there was still Kim Seokjin quietly sitting backstage, eating honey before going out to perform for tens of thousands of people. And somehow, moments like that make fans love him even more. Then came the soundcheck photos. And honestly, those might have been some of the most devastating pictures of the entire tour. There's something about Jin during soundcheck that always hits differently. Maybe it's because the atmosphere feels raw and unfiltered. Maybe it's because he looks completely focused before the chaos of the actual concert begins. Holding his signature pink microphone, Jin stood on stage with that effortlessly tall posture fans always talk about. His proportions looked unreal beneath the stadium lights. Long frame, wide shoulders, elegant silhouette. And what really stood out was how calm he looked. Not nervous, not pressured, just completely present. Like someone who truly understands the weight of the stage he's standing on. And that stage was historic, because BTS became the first Korean singers ever to hold concerts at Sun Bowl Stadium in El Paso, Texas. Think about that for a second. Years ago, people questioned whether Korean artists could fill stadiums in the United States. Now, BTS isn't just filling them, they're making history inside them. And Jin's presence during those El Paso concerts became one of the biggest talking points online afterward. Fans who attended said his live vocals felt even more emotional in person than through videos. His voice carried through the stadium with this beautiful mix of strength and softness that made every song feel personal. That's one thing people constantly underestimate about Jin. Yes, his visuals are legendary. Yes, he trends constantly for his appearance. But underneath all of that is a vocalist with incredible emotional delivery. When Jin sings, it doesn't feel mechanical. It feels honest. And during the El Paso concerts, fans said that honesty was everywhere. In his facial expressions, his movements, the way he looked out into the crowd. There was one especially emotional moment when Jin wore a massive cape, creating a large taegyeok pattern during the concert. The imagery was stunning. Fans described it as powerful and symbolic, a reminder of how BTS continues carrying Korean identity and culture onto some of the world's biggest stages. And seeing Jin standing there beneath stadium lights, wrapped in that imagery, made many fans emotional because it represented something bigger than music. It represented history, growth, pride, a journey that millions of people have witnessed together. But despite all the grandeur, Jin still kept showing those smaller, softer moments that fans treasure the most. That's why people connect to him so deeply. He never feels unreachable, even when he looks impossibly beautiful. Even when he's commanding a stadium, there's still warmth in him, still humor, still gentleness, still sincerity. And honestly, that balance may be exactly why his popularity keeps growing so intensely. Even local media in El Paso couldn't escape Jin's impact. One announcer from NBC affiliate KTSM News reportedly congratulated a fan who won premium BTS tickets and casually revealed that she herself was a BTS fan, and that her bias was Jin. The moment spread online incredibly fast because fans realized something important. Jin's charm crosses every boundary. Age, language, nationality, culture. People who barely know BTS remember Jin, and maybe that's because his energy feels strangely universal. There's a timelessness to him lately. He doesn't just feel like an idol anymore. He feels iconic, like someone whose presence naturally leaves an imprint wherever he goes. And perhaps the most emotional part of all this is realizing how far he's come. Fans who have watched Jin for years remember how hard he worked to grow as a vocalist, performer, and artist. They remember the pressure he faced, the expectations placed on him, and the moments where people underestimated him. Now look at him, standing inside historic stadiums, dominating global headlines, captivating crowds across continents, turning even random backstage photos into worldwide conversations. And somehow, despite all of it, he still smiles with the same warmth that made fans fall in love with him in the first place. That's why these El Paso photos hit people so hard emotionally. Because they didn't just show a celebrity. They showed a person who has evolved into something extraordinary, while still remaining deeply lovable and human. And now, after completely taking over El Paso and Mexico City with overwhelming excitement, BTS is preparing for the next massive concerts at Stanford Stadium in San Francisco on May 17th, 18th, and 20th. But if El Paso proved anything, it's that Jin isn't just attending this tour. He's owning it. One smile, one note, one glance, one impossible photo at a time.